piping to the sleeve, let's just totally disregard that I already attached the sleeve because I wasn't paying attention to the directions and I attached it first, so I apologize for that. We're starting on step 12, so I've got the sleeve right side up. I've already finished one edge, so you can see I serged along the long straight edge of the sleeve, and I just pinned the piping right along that straight edge there. I usually just leave a tiny little bit of overhang on either side, and then we'll trim that after it's sewn. So I'm going to take this to the machine, and I'm going to try to sew as close to the piping as possible. So you want it to just be right next to the piping without crossing over the stitching of the piping. So if I get closer here, you can see the stitching in the piping there. I don't want to cross over that, but I just want to get as close to that as possible. So I'm going to take this over to my machine and sew it on. Okay, so now I've sewn this on, and you can barely see my stitching because it's just right below the piping stitching. I went ahead and trimmed one side of the piping, and I'll go and make this completely even with this side over here. Okay, so now I've got both sides trimmed, and what I'm going to do now is we're going to pull out a little bit of the piping. If we try to sew this sleeve together with this little bit of piping right here staying in there, it'll be too thick, and so it'll be an awkward seam right at the end of the sleeve. So what I'm going to do is remove just a little bit of stitching, maybe about a 1/2 inch of this piping stitching. So this stitching right at the top here. It's really going to be hard for me to show you on the video, but essentially I'm going to go in and I'm going to unpick to right there, and then I'll show you what we're going to do next. Okay, so here you can kind of see where I've removed the piping stitching right there, and then I kind of opened it up at the end, and I'm going to pull this cording right here out. I'm going to pull out about a 1/2 inch of the cording and snip it, and then just kind of pull it back, and I'll show you what it looks like whenever we pull it back, but it'll basically be where there's a flattened little 1/2 inch end, and then the piping will start. So I'm going to do this on both sides of the sleeve. Okay, so here you can kind of see where there's no cording on the end here, and then the cording begins. So that happened on both sides. So I removed the stitches over here, pulled the cording out about a 1/2 inch, and you can see it's kind of flattened there, and then the cording starts right there. Okay, so now I've jumped down to step 24. So I've attached the armband, put it right sides together with the sleeve. So you can kind of see like a little lump where the piping is there. I'm going to take this over to the machine, and I'm going to sew just as close as I can to that piping. So it's just important to really be able to palpate around and feel where that piping is. I usually use an open foot, and that way I can align the edge of the foot right along the edge of the piping and get my needle just right up close to it. You can also use a piping foot or a zipper foot. Just whatever you need to use in order to get right up on that piping there. But before, this is what the open foot is, at least on my Bernina. This is foot number 20 on the Bernina. So I can line the piping up. Let me get that to focus. Okay, I can line the piping up right with the side of the foot right there and move my needle over just a little bit, and it'll just get right up next to that piping. Okay, so now you can see after the sewing is done, I can't see any of the piping stitching, which is what I wanted. I wanted to be able to only see the piping and not any of the stitching that's actually on the piping. So I'm going to go and top stitch just right here, right along the upper part of the sleeve. So the seam allowances will be folded up, and I'll top stitch right along here. It's really hard to see the top stitching because it kind of just blends in with the fabric, but you can see the top stitching is right there. And now the sleeve is all done.
Hi, thanks for watching. Make sure you subscribe.